We bought this house in this area because we kind of knew the history of this area, and it was nothing compared to what it is today. Our house was elevated. We knew the risks when we came in here, but the risks have gotten much higher now. The area, it's changed a lot, basically. I wouldn't buy now, let's put it that way.
Passaic River, I believe, crested at the highest point was a little over 12 feet, and this was going to crest with Hurricane Irene to 14 feet. I knew then that we were in trouble because when it crested at 12 feet with Hurricane Floyd, which was about 12, 13 years ago, the water was everywhere as well, but it really didn't hit the houses. And so 2 feet higher, I definitely knew we were going to be in for some trouble.
We knew it was going to be bad, so I had to convince my mom, who stays here during every flood, to actually leave her house and to just, we deal with things when the water receded.
So it started coming up, and once the water hit the street, within 2 to 3 hours, it was all the houses were surrounded, and it rose for probably the next day and a half. So the river flood stage here is about 9.5 feet, they call it. The river went up to 14.5 feet this time. It was historic.
When the hurricane was coming, you could do anything you can. You fill up sandbags, you board up the windows, you bring anything in the basement. This used to be a finished basement, but now it's down to the bare walls because we got 6 feet of water in Hurricane Irene. You prepare as much as you can, but then you basically have to just sit. There's nothing you can do but just watch the water rise. All the schools were closed, so now the kids have nowhere to go. We had no electricity, we had no running water, we had no heat, so you really can't stay here. I mean, during the day you can, but then at night it gets cooler and there's no lights. It just made it very inconvenient. And then not knowing when the river was going to recede, at least 3 days later, our schools got flooded, so then they had to have remediation of mold and cleanup, and it was just really a small nightmare, it really was.
We all pretty much have a system of boats back here. And a normal flood, if I was home, we tie a boat to my front stairs before the water comes up, so that when the water comes up, there's a boat right there, and I usually take that back and forth to my mom's house during a regular flood. So pretty much everyone in the neighborhood has a boat they have to get around and waders to walk in the water in. I could tell you that it came up to the ceiling of my basement in a regular 11 to 12 foot flood that we've been having every spring lately. It usually goes 5.5, 6 feet in my basement, but it reached the full 8 foot ceilings in the basement this time. We have a guy come disconnect my hot water heater and remove it before the water comes in and take the electrical panel out of the furnace. I did have a washer and dryer down there, but they were ruined in the March flood. So it was just, I hadn't taken them out yet. So this time I had some manpower to pull them out. So pretty much I have a basement the full length of my house that I can only keep a furnace and a hot water heater in.
I'll be honest with you, I don't normally get water in my basement, so I didn't think it would be that bad. I thought I might get maybe a foot or two. To see 6 feet of water when the ceilings are only 8 feet high was pretty disturbing. This area actually suffered flash flooding, so there was water instantly everywhere, but as quickly as it came up, it went down with Hurricane Irene. So you think, okay, the worst is over, the storm is gone. Then, because there was so much water that came down with Hurricane Irene, the warnings were now that the Passaic River was going to crest 2 feet over its banks. And the warning to us in this area was that whatever we received on Hurricane Irene, we were going to get again. So now it's like a double whammy. We were getting water, but this time it stayed for days because when the river crested, the water had nowhere to go and it just sat. So we were literally underwater for several days.
It's very hard to sell right now. There's houses on this street that have been on the market for a while and no one's really even looking at them. And the prices have gone down so much that it's going to be very hard to sell. They're saying they're either going to raise houses or they're going to have a few buyouts, but there's not going to be enough money for a lot of buyouts.
There's probably 400 houses affected here if they buy out. If they have enough money from the government to buy out 20 houses, that'd be a lot. maybe 25, 30 houses, and that's not going to really solve anybody's problem except a select few.
It's very stressful when you go through something like this. Immediately, you have to get everything out of your house that was destroyed by water because you have bacteria and mold that grows very quickly. Then you have to have your house chemically cleaned and sanitized and make sure there's no bacteria or mold spores growing. All the agencies that you deal with, you have flood insurance and homeowners insurance, and then FEMA kicks in, but it's many phone calls and many documentations. It's just very, very aggravating because, you pay a lot in insurance, but when it comes time to redeem, it's not so easy to get that reimbursement. In here is my boiler room. We had to get a new hot water heater. I had a 6-foot freezer here full of food that tipped over and we lost everything. All my cabinets, toilet paper, paper towels, everything was destroyed. Anything, canned goods, tools, just completely destroyed. The water was literally 6 feet high. The ceiling's only about 8 feet high.
They continue to build upstream, and there's just no place for the water to go. We live on a peninsula here, so when there's too much rain, we get hit, and now it's getting worse and worse. So after there's a flood every year, the town has these big meetings, and everybody goes down there and talks, and they talk about floodgates at the Beatty's Dam. They're going to do something there, or look into it. They're going to look into dredging. A lot of talk, and then if it goes down, people fix their houses, and everybody forgets about it till next time.
There's always the stories of flood tunnels, flood walls, dredging the river, but they've been talking about that since I was born, so we're going on 34 years now, and nothing's been done since I've been around. So up until about 2007, the first time we started having these annual floods, this place was just the place to hang out. We had the bar and bar stools and couches and chairs, and we'd have people down here every weekend and card games and just hanging out and holiday parties, and now it's just a space you really can't use, unfortunately.
It's just a shame that, water can do so much damage. You work so hard to make your houses nice and to try to keep the value up, but when you get water, they're really not worth anything. No one wants to buy a house that gets water. So that's kind of sad. If I ever decide to move, I have to clarify that I have gotten water, and it's not a good selling point, that's for sure.
You've got to get a really big sucker to come in here and buy at this time. I have a neighbor on the one side of me trying to sell a 2-family that's not going to go anywhere. Another neighbor's house is up for sale. It's just, they'll sit on the market for a very long time. I'm not very hopeful, and I'm on the young end of the spectrum. There's people that have been here, their whole lives, like my mother, and they've seen no changes.
If we can sell our house, we would move today. Or if we can get a buyout, we would move now.
The future doesn't look good around here. With people walking away from their homes, the bank's going to take over homes. Maybe they're going to rent the homes. Maybe they're going to level the homes. It looks very bleak.